Coach Pete Coulson joins us periodically on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and News Radio 1310.com. A man with an incredible life story and a resume to back that up. It's 5 minutes after 8 o'clock. We're at 45. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and News Radio 1310.com. Coach, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you and learn from you as we learn from each other.
So yesterday you're sharing this video with me from, I think it's Nickelodeon, and it's hosted by some pop star, some singer. And this is designed, and is actually airing on Nickelodeon, is designed to convince people of critical race theory, and there was a lot of jargon with Black Lives Matter, and this is being shown to children of all backgrounds all across the country. You were not a happy camper when you saw this. No, because it was Janice McGee is the one that sent it to me and said, "What is your opinion about this being taught to fifth graders in the Boise schools or shown to them?" And I was appalled because in that whole video, nothing was ever said about character, respect, or responsibility. It was all about poor is me because my skin is a little darker than you. Well, when you said this is in Boise schools, they're watching this? I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, she sent it to me. She says, "Please watch and let me know if you think this is appropriate to show in fifth grade class here in Boise."
Gosh, I was everybody I've heard over the last week from the education establishment has said, no, nothing like this is happening in Idaho schools. But every time you turn around, we find a new example of it. I don't know how they define critical race theory, but it seems to me it's quite obvious.
Right. I mean, it is. It's just unfortunate that people don't check their facts. You were talking about fact checker earlier. People don't check facts. They're just thinking, if somebody says it, it must be gospel truth. No, we need to check our facts on a daily basis and be involved in our local communities in the best way possible.
You know, Coach, when people in this country, a majority voted for Barack Obama twice and made him president for 2 terms, I was under the impression that we'd really turned a corner when it came to race relations. And honestly, I can remember what it was like being a boy in the 60s and 70s. And while I did not live in the Deep South where there used to be a lot of what you might call challenges, I still lived in a rural part of America where we didn't know a lot of people of color, and there were some attitudes there, stereotypes that existed. But by the time I think I got through high school, they were pretty well gone and dispelled. So I got out of high school 41 years ago. I'm looking at this now today, and after I thought Obama was really the end game of all of that a lot of people would vote for the man and they wouldn't question the color of his skin. They just were voting because they wanted some change and thought he might bring it about. But I gotta be honest with you. I don't know how things have come so far off the rails since he left the White House, or even while he was still there. It seems that this really got percolating during his time in Washington.
There seems to be some kind of a connection with that because it seems like it's become more of an exploited issue when it really shouldn't be. I mean, we are all part of the human race, and I'm not sure why it becomes such a controversial issue on a daily basis. When my parents adopted me, they said, "Son, your most important attribute in society is be a man of character. Don't let your color of your skin, don't let your culture define you. Let who you are and who you're going to be define you." Those were powerful messages. It's to me, and they were demonstrated by my parents on a daily basis. They did not allow me to make an excuse. They gave me the skills to make an improvement. Life is never fair. Learn to work through those things in a responsible way. And people are making more excuses and not recognizing the blessings of this country and the blessings that we have by connecting with each other and focusing on the blame game and blaming everybody else for their own personal lack of success.
Maybe it's because partly we become a post-Christian society, whereas I know your father was a preacher, and so he raised all of his children obviously from a biblical perspective, and you have so many young people today who have really they simply don't have that experience. So it gets we fill up their minds and their lives instead with all of these slogans and with Black Lives Matter and some of these other organizations step in and fill that void.
I think that's a valid point. At the same time, in our churches, we have not allowed each other's story to be heard in a proactive way, in an understanding that we are uniquely different, each individual, but together we become a powerful organization of the human race. And I think that has crept into our churches, and we try to create a dividing line because we don't follow Christian principles.
You like the phrase "all lives matter," and that line itself, it shocks me that that's become the more controversial thing to say, and it can actually get you into serious trouble. I mean, we've seen, who was it? There was a basketball announcer in California who was fired from his job. He'd been there for decades as the play-by-play man, and he made the comment that all lives matter, and he was gone from his job within a week.
Yeah, it makes no sense because they're silencing people just because they don't agree. And that's wrong because in life there's constantly going to be disagreement on various issues. I can respectfully disagree, but I still value that creation God has made in that person to empower them to be the best person that they can be. And I think that's a forgotten art on a daily basis. And I think we need to get back to it. And I value and appreciate people in our legislature challenging issues that concern the freedoms of our country.
Well, there was another point to this. You know, there was a lot of from a certain political group, and then from some people in the media, there was a lot of criticism of these votes in the House and Senate to bar critical race theory from being taught in schools. Yet I heard some of the word for word the legislation that was mentioned, and it was about judging people by character and not, their attributes. And I, and then the other argument was, well, there's none of it. Then there was, well, there's not much of it. But to me, it just seems like it's you draw the line somewhere and say, well, we don't want any of it, and that ultimately, because I see this, Coach, I guess, as a passing fad. It's one of these things that 5 years from now we'll be thinking, why were we even talking about all those things back in 2021?
And that's true to a point, but at the same time, there's a lot of lives that are being indoctrinated, and people can't think for themselves. I sent you that quote about reparations and about the fact that we need to owe some people that they owe the blacks something. The people that were involved in slavery are no longer alive. So who do you owe anything to? You don't owe anybody. You owe yourself to be a responsible citizen in your local community and take the lessons of history to help you become a more productive and person of character in your local community. And that seems to be forgotten. It's so easy to blame rather than look at the blessings of life.
We're speaking with Coach Pete Coulson this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 46. It's coming up on 814. And Bill Colley with you as well on Magic Valley this morning. Yeah, I think it's a tough sell, Coach. If you tell a veteran who had both legs blown off in Afghanistan that he owes someone reparations, he might give you a rather unusual look. And secondly, he also served alongside people. I think you brought this up the last time you were here. He was serving in an institution that was the most colorblind institution in all of America, if not all of the world.
Definitely, and they've been side by side with a mixed race of people for a common goal of keeping America free and helping us defend our freedoms. And that's why it gets so lost with all this politicizing in various areas that really there's no place for it. Sports is a place to relax. It's not a place for politics. And I get so frustrated with that because sometimes you can have a political stance. But as a referee, when I was refereeing and I worked with kids, I always remind parents, who's watching you? Because the way you deal with the referee and the coach, you're modeling behavior to your children that's going to impact their life. Is it going to be a positive impact or a negative impact? Is it going to be an impact of excuses or empowerment?
Well, if we do
it on a daily basis.
If we raise a generation of young children to believe that because of the color of their skin, that they're entitled to something and that other people should grovel before them. I think what the folks who are promoting that don't realize is there's a large block of the population that is not going to get down and bow, that is not going to grovel, and this is only going to lead to disruption and perhaps something even worse, even violence in this country that perhaps we haven't seen the likes of that we haven't seen since what, the 1860s.
Right. I mean, I think you're creating a greater division. I mean, the situation with George Floyd was very unfortunate. At the same time, there was a responsibility he did not take advantage of, and it cost him his life. People need to learn to respect authority. When I was a youngster, I mouthed off to my dad. And my dad said, son, we can't have two bosses in the house. One's got to go, and it's not going to be me. and I was booted out of the house. That is the best lesson in my life about being responsible and respecting authority. Because when I left the house that night, despite the frustration of Dad kicking me out, I knew the principles he instilled in my life that will help me be the best person I can be. And that's what I focused on.
I got to say, that there was a dad in your life saying that. And the problem for a lot of these younger people, and the reason I think you can sell them on just about anything, because again, we're in a post-Christian society, but they didn't have those role models. You mentioned when you were refereeing, telling the parents, behave yourselves because you're setting a tone. But in a lot of these households, there has been no one there to set that. I mean, either one parent is gone and absent, and you just don't have that structure any longer.
Well, and the other side of that as well is the fact that as a referee, I was able to, when a parent came up to me and say, I think my kid's going to be a professional basketball player. I said, take a reality check. Check, is this really a thing you want to tell a first grader that they're going to be a pro? You set them up for failure. Help them enjoy the game. Help them enjoy life in the process. And if that's a byproduct of what life gives you, praise God. But allow that child not to be stuck in a box he can't get out of because he's not meeting your expectations. And I think sometimes that's the danger, that because we have failures in our personal lives, we live our lives to our children, and if they fail, it's their problem, not our problem. But it's a team effort on both sides. You have to be a parent first and a friend second.
Yeah,
same as a coach.
I could say that I don't have many instances where I could say mom and dad were my friend, even when I was an adult.
Right. But I think we have a society that's built on friendship, not on respecting authority, and that's some of the problems. I think.
Got to get to a break in about a minute, but Coach Pete will stick around with us until 8:30 this morning. And I do want to mention we're at 46. It's almost 19 minutes after 8 o'clock. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Got a message just before I got you on the telephone from Brent Renke, and he wanted me to pass along a hello.
Well, thank you. I just love that man. What a great man. What a great friend, a great mentor.
We'll be seeing him again on air in the next couple of weeks, of course, from the Twin Falls County Commission. And you got to know him, obviously, as well when you were both working with the Department of Corrections.
Yes, and he values people at all levels. Janitor is just as important to him as his role as a leader. And that was just an amazing role model for me on a daily basis.
We've got more coming up with Coach Pete Coulson in a moment on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Before we hear the music, can you tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, Coach Coulson at gmail.com, and my spelling, my last name is Coulson.
Outstanding. More on the way in a couple of minutes. 20 after 8 now. It is 45, and you're listening to Magic Valley This Morning. Coach Pete Coulson joining us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 43. We're at 8:23. Bill Colley on Magic Valley This Morning. And I was talking to Coach off air about a story that broke last week, and it's got a lot of attention. And it's unfortunate because LeBron James, because of his stature as a ball player, he's perhaps the most respected player among his peers. When he says something, they all listen. And if that be the case, that also means that millions of young boys and other people, they listen to what he happens to say. And he made a comment last week where it almost sounded as if he was trying to generate a threat against a police officer in Columbus, Ohio. And with that, he withdrew the tweet, but he never issued any sort of apology. And Coach, when you see something like that happen, this man, I don't even think realizes that he's got a bigger responsibility than just talking about one particular race or one particular issue.
Well, yes, because so many young people look at athletes as role models in their local community, and his reactions to certain things becomes counterproductive. And that is so unfortunate in so many ways that I'm not sure how you have to be communicating with people on a regular basis to help them understand all these dynamics that trigger reactions to society. And I think as a person in that role, I think he has to be more aware of his audience, the ones that agree and disagree with him, and be a presence of positivity rather than of resistance to the level of authority.
Well, the NBA hasn't said anything about what he did. His sponsors haven't said anything. It seems to me there's almost a fear among some of these people of saying, "Hey, you gotta tone it down."
Yeah, I mean, it's like having a friend that tells you what you need to hear. Somebody needs to be his friend in that process. I remember John Wooden and his role at UCLA and the success he had as a coach. And he didn't want anybody to have goatees or shaved beards, or, they were all clean-shaven people. But he had a standard he put in place that was required, and nobody balked that. And that's the interesting thing, is that so many times now the athlete dictates the path. No, the coach dictates the path. And that's where we lost the level of authority figures.
How about these people who are saying that it's normal for kids to have knife fights and police shouldn't intervene?
Stupid. Sorry. That's just that is so ridiculous. I don't know how many times I had people in school that were sent to the principal's office because they had a knife in their pocket. That's a threat. Don't minimize crime. Don't minimize criminal behavior. Because if you don't stop it now, how will you ever stop it going forward? Because you're giving the people an inch, they'll take a mile. There are reasons why certain things aren't allowed in airports. And there's reasons why there is a level of authority in our society to maintain the peace. Don't minimize that.
Yeah,
just discredit that.
This that's the other flip side of this coin, is that it's this attack on law enforcement means that in the long run, everyone is going to be, the safety on our streets is going to be compromised.
Definitely. That's a given. If we keep up in the way we're going now, it's going to be a nightmare. And I just get so frustrated at the fact that people don't seem to recognize that and try to play politics because they want to look good. Sometimes being an authority figure as a parent, you look ugly. If you tell your child no, you say it for a reason. I remember when I was at church one day and a kid almost ran across the street. He wasn't my child. And I yelled very aggressively, "Stop." And the mother yelled at me and I said, "Ma'am, you want to pick up a dead kid?" If we don't learn to respect other people in authority when we have that situation, we are creating a dead society, and we're going to have a lot of uncertainty in our future.
By the way, I got a note from your cousin Butch. And
I need to call him sometime. I want to have a conversation with that man.
Yeah, we'll have to do lunch one of these days. But he says the coach is so refreshing, and he said it's sad we don't have leaders that would pay more attention to what he says. And he also says a book from you instead of Kamala Harris would be more welcome at the border.
Well, thank you. I just try to live life in a practical and responsible way. Am I perfect? Shoot, no. But I have people in my life that keep me up to date and keep me balanced. And we all need that. We need sometimes to have people in our lives that tell us, Pete, stop being an hothead and live life responsibly.
I got to let you run, but we'll talk soon, and we'll try to work on this idea about lunch one of these days.
Okay, God bless you, my friend. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you. Coach Pete Coulson joining us this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. And it's 47. Going to be a bit warmer today than it has been the last couple of days. We may not actually see any wind as well. Albeit it looks like the wind's going to return this weekend with a vengeance. It might be the windiest spring any of us can remember in quite some time. Got 90 more minutes of Magic Valley this morning still ahead with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. And I'm going to talk a little bit about coronavirus and what should happen to John Kerry. If he sells out an ally, is he a traitor because it's an ally, or should we turn him over to the ally and say, have your way with him? Questions I have coming up.